Welcome back to A to the show. Before we do anything, before we start, we have to do the cringy part where I say, please follow, subscribe, and share. If you don't, yani, my laptop will crash. It will just not, it will stop working because of you. Anyway, now that we're going to start, today we have a new guest on the show. We have Lana Salah. Lana is a Palestinian comedian who stands 6 foot tall, towering above all other comedians. She is the Burj Khalifa of comedians in LA, and she's a fantastic comedian. You should really definitely watch her show and watch this podcast because you're going to learn a lot about her and see what she's all about. Also, she studied engineering, so it's a big transition from engineering to comedy. Lana, please tell us a bit about why did you choose comedy and why and how it feels like, being the biggest comedian in the on stage.
Obviously, I mean biggest and tall, but like
صح, yes, I
the
probably used
biggest
the
in
wrong
size.
synonym. My bad.
Um, I've always loved comedy. I was a huge fan of comedy since I was a teenager, and my sisters as well and I, we used to, that was kind of our bonding. We would all sit and watch stand up comedy, and we really got into like Def Jam comedy. They used to have like
Mm.
a Def Jam comedy hour, and then we moved to the Middle East, and it was very different. So it was like we didn't have access to those things as easily, and this was like the
Mhm.
90s. So
Mm.
we would wait until we would get like VHS tapes from family in America. They'd like record them from HBO or something, and then when they'd go visit,
VHS.
they'd give us VHS tapes. Yeah, I'm a lot older than you guys. Okay.
Hey, no, I've used
Yeah,
VHS, يعني بصراحة.
yeah. Like
I've used
I'm
it.
talking about the 90s, and you're like the 90s. Um, so I was a teenager in the 90s. Okay. Um, but so we would get these videos, and I would watch them because that's all we had. So you'd watch them over and over. And you remember being like a kid just watching something over and over until we like
Yeah.
memorized these comedians. And and I was introduced to comedians that like George Carlin and Bill Hicks and people like of course Eddie Murphy, Raw, like we but again, as a culture in the Middle East, a lot of us kind of we ate that up. We wanted that. So like the kids in my school, we were, I was in like a private like kind of school with like British and that. And so they all were also into like comedy, and we would talk about it in class because it was like forbidden. It was
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
you can't you can't quote Eddie Murphy Raw in like an Arabic high school. Like even in any like what are you gonna talk? You're gonna be like, did you hear this last Eddie Murphy joke? So we were just kind of like exchanging contraband, in like high school. It was like that. And so we'd be
Another
quietly,
contraband. Yeah.
that was contraband. That was our contraband in high school, was like these illegal jokes. And nobody could know that we were listening to, this man talk about, genitals and terrible things. Okay. So it was like that was kind of our introduction. And then Bill Hicks and George Carlin really like brought it home because Bill Hicks talked a lot about the Gulf War. Bill Hicks
Mm.
talked a lot
Yeah.
about Bill Hicks talked a lot about so many things that are still relevant today, that like I watch and I rewatch his stuff, and you're like, how is this like the same? Like, have we not evolved as a, at least our foreign policy hasn't. So it's like all of that, like kind of really gave me that feeling of like, oh, you can be funny and have something to say. And so and then I came back to America, and most of I was really just focused on like survival and like, working and stuff. So it wasn't like, you know what, I'm going to go to get into this comedy gig. I just was like, hey, I got an engineering degree. How much will you pay me so I can get a roof over my head? So I did that for a while, and I thought about it, over the years, and I would do improv briefly. Was not my medium. And just different things. And then a few years ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start doing comedy. Like I just had no barriers to do it, except that I was much
Yeah.
older than most people. But that's not even a barrier. It's just like whatever, you do what you want to do when you want to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Makes sense.
yeah, and also like I started doing, like, let's just say, like, I started doing it also because I wanted to talk about Palestine, and because I felt like I had a unique point of view that I could add to the, like, I could add to everything. It wasn't just like a regurgitation of the same thing. And I kind of wanted to find a way to work that into, my comedy. And also
Mm-hmm.
just, that was my personal
Yeah.
trauma. Living in the Middle East is traumatic for a
Yeah,
woman,
definitely.
So it was like, how do I take this, comedy equals, tragedy plus time, right? So it's kind of like, how do I, now I've had
Very
enough
engineer
time.
of you. Mm-hmm.
Well, we say that it's like comedy is tragedy plus time. It's like, it's only
It's
funny
the
after
equation.
you've had years to like be like, okay, I can laugh about, what I mean? I can make a joke about it now. So I
Yeah.
had it'd been enough time that I was like, let me see how to make this funny, digestible, and kind of relatable for other people. So then they can
Mm.
relate to whether Arab women, Palestinian, Muslim, like, we're not a monolith.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And
We're
you're not
not.
a monolith. You are
I
a
just look like,
spectrum. Just like
yeah,
just like
we,
autism.
I'm definitely on a spectrum somewhere. I have ADHD, so that too. And I think also because I always, comedians are very unique people.
Yep.
A
Yeah.
person, it's a mindset, it's a thought process, it's a way of viewing the world. And it's also just
Yeah.
like, recognizing that if you're gonna speak unfiltered, and that's like very, like, for very scary for people. And also like just the fear of rejection and the fear of embarrassment that goes with that, right? So you have to
Mm.
be up there, fine to bomb over and over again. And as a Middle Eastern person, I don't feel good about that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I gotta go up here.
Stay
I want
away
to
from
kill.
that.
It's like I'd rather be a killer. Okay.
Than a
I feel
bomber.
like we can. I
Oh,
feel like
okay.
we can.
An assassin. Let's
We
do
were
it.
talking we were talking about not getting blacklisted, It's like
Yeah, no, but like that's the thing. It's so funny to me that comedy uses those words, like you bomb or you kill,
yeah.
right? Those are the words we use. And it's like they're so loaded for Middle Eastern people. It's like, why do we got to use these words? Why can't we say something else? Like, I don't
What
know
would be
about you
the
guys.
other? What would be the other word you would use
I
instead?
feel
What are
like,
you
I don't
thinking?
know. I feel like it would be like just like
Maybe
saying,
something from the Arabic language we can use. I don't know,
imagine,
like
be like, we either
I'm
did yalla
hummusing.
or ma
I don't know.
salame. Like, that was a yalla. That was a ma salame. You know what I mean? Like,
There you go.
that's what I feel like. It doesn't, like, why does it have to be so violent? Americans so violent. And then they say word violence. We don't say that. Comedy in the Middle East, we don't say bakhet. Like, we don't,
Fajaret.
fajaret,
Out.
atalit. Like, we don't, like, the translation just doesn't fit. And then they say, you guys are violent people. Are we though? Are we? Like, we just say we laughed. Okay. We
Yeah.
had a good time. Okay. You're like, I come off the stage, you're like, you killed girl. I'm like, hold up. Hold up.
I didn't kill
Okay.
anybody.
We're
Let's
all
not
okay
advertise
here.
that. No,
Still only
let's
one.
please not
Yeah, we can't right now.
advertise.
All right.
So yeah,
Um,
Side, go for it.
what I was wondering is, when we're talking about these topics, obviously, comedians are just speaking it as like because this is how we cope, especially in the Middle East. We talk about these things, but I wonder when we share them with Western people, does it also maybe normalize it for them?
in terms
Is that like a positive or a negative?
in
As
terms
in,
of
like when
like
we're talking about, yeah,
these
the
jokes that
trauma.
we're talking about. Oh, the trauma. I think there's a fine line you have to walk, right? So
Yeah,
so for example, as a woman, my trauma would be different than a man's trauma, right? and
Fair enough.
so and so as a woman, whether it's in the Middle East or anywhere else, there's a certain level of that trauma that's relatable to all women, that
yeah,
we, and there's a lot of lessons and things that we learn that we can, um, all learn from. And I also believe that as women, like, we're not free until we're all free, right? So I can
mm,
love my people, I can love my country. I can love the Middle East. And just like I love America, I can always say, hey, this is not right. That's not cool. We're better than that. And that's not what our religion even says in the first place. Right. But more so, it's like if I'm speaking of my personal like trauma as a woman and trying to find a way to make it funny, relatable, and also a remember like I was in the 90s in some of these things. So also make it, an understanding of the times,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
saying that these were the times and the times now are different, right? These, and like in a way, the times now are much more similar. Like we're much more similar now in the Middle East and in America, I think, than we kind of ever were. Like because of social
Mm.
media, because of we didn't have that stuff, then. So I think there's like I have women in the Middle East that are fans that are like, this is relatable to us. So I think that sure there can be an aspect where people can take it and twist it just like anything and say like, look, like you guys, but at the same time, it's like you can see, comedians talking about terrible things that happen in America, terrible things that happen to them. And
Yeah.
under other religions, they're Catholic. They're like there's a lot of comedians that talk about Catholic abuse. You
Mm.
know, there's a lot of
Yes.
like I hear a lot of Irish Catholic people talk about that, and so
Ooh.
it's a real thing. Like it always gives me pause too, because I'm like, oh, I kind of forget about that because it's not my experience. But and they were also in the 90s and it was a different experience for us. I'm Gen X,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that kind of aspect, and I make it a point to let people know that it's not like, hey, this wasn't just like last week. Like I wasn't just like out of the. But yeah, there is an aspect of that. It could be, but ultimately, like you can't you. It's like if that's my story and that's my expression, the best I can do is really try to make it as representative as possible and as funny as possible so that
Yeah.
people take it in the right way.
Yeah, totally. And keep
Mhm.
in mind that everyone has their own perceptions of it. Said might have his own perception of something abusive that happened to him
Yeah.
when he hears abuse. Versus when I hear Abu Yusuf, I think of the father of my friend Yusuf.
Abu Yusuf. There used to be a very like, there used to be an artist in the Middle East called Abu Yusuf. I don't know if
I
do you
don't.
guys know this? He was
No.
so popular in the 90s and he was the first Arabic rapper. He was like this rapper in Jordan and he used to rap. No, you guys will have to look this
The
up.
references are all in the 90s يعني شوي صعبة إنه
Okay, but I'm just saying, like,
Abu
this is
Yusuf.
history. I'm giving you history, and you're refusing the history. Okay,
No, tell us.
first
No,
Arabic
no, we'll
rap.
accept. Oh, no, no. Send. Yes. Okay.
First Arabic rap. Okay,
Right.
this was a man
Abu
named
Yusuf.
Abu Yusuf who used to say, "Amman irbit bag'a suwalah." Everybody talk about Abu Yusuf. Are you kidding me? That's genius. Okay. We were blasting that in the streets. Arabs were so proud. We had our own rap. Okay. And the guy was calling himself Abu Yusuf. Okay. Which by the way is really rap because it's really hip hop because that's just like Daddy Yusuf. Like,
Daddy
right? It's like
Yusuf. Papa
Yusuf
Yusuf.
Daddy, okay? Daddy of
Yep, yep.
Yusuf. So that was like the most like hip, like in the 90s, we barely were getting hip hop. So it was like every time I hear Abu Yusuf, that's the only thing that, and my grandfather was Abu Yusuf. May he rest in
Which
peace.
one?
May he rest in peace. But Abu Yusuf as an artist, I'm telling you, he had like
Right.
a whole, you got it? Did you find it?
I think so. Wait.
Said, you're so
Is
funny.
this him?
This is one of them. Yeah, but this is one of them. Yeah, yeah.
That's so funny.
This is
That's a
like
funny
one of
guy.
them, and then he had the it was I think it was called Hamman. I don't remember what the song was. It was just called Abu Yusuf, but it was literally just him saying city names.
Oh,
Okay, and I was like, genius. Arabs will eat this
uh,
up. Okay, so we crave entertainment.
yep.
That's the other
Yep.
thing. That's why it's like the laughter aspect of it is
Yep.
important because
mhm.
sure, these are tough topics, but if you're going to deliver them, laughter's the best way. And people are
Totally.
going to come in with biases and they're going to want to think about it with their perspective. That's on them.
Yeah. And keep in
Yeah.
mind that when we go through something rough, we want to talk about it. Like
Exactly.
it makes it worse for you to keep things inside. So if you're going through something, find someone to talk to, find a friend, a family, a therapist, whatever, to talk to about it. We have a podcast, so when we have
Exactly.
We're
something
always talking.
traumatic happen, we just talk about it on the podcast, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to shut down speech a little bit. They're trying to make it so you can't talk about things anymore, and we need to
Absolutely.
resist
Yeah.
against
Ah,
that and talk.
Hmm.
So take that.
they were doing
Yep.
that with Mahmoud Khalil, for example.
Absolutely. Free Mahmoud Khalil. They just arrested another student today from
Mm.
Colombia. I don't remember her name off the top of my head, unfortunately, but they just
Mm-hmm.
arrested another girl today. So
Oof.
it's
Um,
happening.
how does that make you feel as a stand-up comic? Does
As
that
a,
worry you?
look, I lived in the Middle East and I went through the same things in the Middle East. So I'm very familiar with this. I'm very familiar with disappearing. Okay. I'm very
No.
familiar. Like mukhabarat, I know the whole deal. Okay. You think like being in Jordan, you're like a big fish in a small pond when you're a 6 foot tall woman. Okay. You think they were just letting me walk down the street and not like paying attention to me?
Hmm.
Like I was on the radar. And then I was like, this one's a troublemaker. This one's a troublemaker. This one American passport. Yeah. Because Americans were seen as, we believe in freedom, right? So we don't
Yeah.
understand. We don't understand you. We come there and you're like, you can't, do that. The king, and I understand, like, I respect the king and all that, but there was just like, we can curse out the president. I don't understand. Like, not now, maybe. I don't know about that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
times are changing for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we gotta be careful. I'll still curse. I
I
don't
think
care.
he's taken a
I'm,
few lessons. I think he's taken a few lessons from the Middle East, and
that's
although
what I
he's like
mean.
being really aggressive,
Trump loves dictators. Trump loves them.
oh yeah,
And you know what? Nobody does dictators and hummus better than us. Okay. We're the best at it. Okay. But Putin's great. Great. He's a good dictator. Fine. He's good at the dictator thing. He's not great. But like Saddam,
yeah.
come on.
Oh, come
Okay.
on.
I mean,
And
I
we have
mean,
the OGs, the legends.
we and also, but the thing is, like, we know about Stalin, and that was crazy and terrible because Stalin killed millions. But
Hmm.
like
Oh, yeah, of
Arabs did it with a panache. Okay,
course.
we looked good doing it. We had cool outfits. We had entourages. I mean, Gaddafi was traveling with an entourage of women and camels so he could have fresh camel milk daily. Okay, like Gaddafi spoke at my college in the Middle
Wow.
East.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Is that true?
Like,
What was that like?
yes,
Yeah.
like I'm saying, it was, because we were, my university had built a big, athletic facility and a
Mm.
stadium. So it was like the first of its
Yeah.
kind. And actually the first concert I saw Sting there and Sheb Mami. So it, it was crazy.
What?
I went from seeing Sting and Sheb Mami to like Gaddafi. Okay. But that's the Middle
Wide
East.
range, very wide range.
That's
Yeah.
the Middle East. You're like,
Desert
oh,
Rose.
cool.
Hmm.
Desert Rose to an actual desert dictator. Okay. So like, and he really is that guy. Like, listen, and people will give me grief for this, and I do not care. I miss Saddam.
Oof.
Okay. I miss Saddam, not because of what he did to his people, not because of, but I miss because Saddam was the beginning of the end for the Middle East. Okay. Them going in and taking out Saddam
Okay.
caused the entire collapse of everything else. And they knew it and they wanted it to happen. Gaddafi was it was like little dominoes, right? And like,
Yeah.
do I support what they did as people? No, not really. Do I also say Jamal Abdel Nasser was a certain time? Like, was I alive during Jamal Abdel Nasser's time? No, but I know the history. And when you go like Saddam was really somehow the glue that held that thing together, because as soon as he was gone, it just started to be like just like a vacuum. Everything just started to kind of go south. So yeah, I miss
Mm.
Saddam because like the Middle East was a much more, like it really was a much better place as the Middle East during that time. Okay. Is it better? Was it better for his people? Listen, all of my college professors were Iraqi from like they defected
Yeah.
from Iraq. So I
Mm.
had firsthand experience. So I understand that again, dictators, oppressive regimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they're bringing it here. So
I don't know. I'm
was
not very
Saddam,
convinced.
was Saddam really like that, considering like Trump loves those guys? Like he really did. I guarantee you, Trump is sitting there at home just looking at pictures of dictators like just manifesting, okay, just like Putin. Wow, what would Putin do? That's his problem. Like people go, what would Jesus do?
Mhm.
He's like, what
What
would
would
Putin
Putin
do?
do?
Yeah.
You know, what would Putin do,
Okay.
right? So
I'm definitely gonna have to disagree with the Arab world being a better place because, like, for example, Lebanon definitely wasn't a better place during those
no,
times. We went we were going through a civil war, and then after the civil war, we were going through occupation from two different countries. So
you're right. Lebanon was an
maybe for us, it's
outlier.
not the same.
Lebanon was an outlier
Ah,
because
okay.
Lebanon's been at war and civil war, and the people of Lebanon to this day, in my opinion, are still suffering from so much trauma, and it's an ongoing trauma. Lebanon has kind of always been an outlier in that way than
Hmm.
maybe the rest of the Levant, like like Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and like that. Like, but yeah, Lebanon. But like Lebanese, you guys are troopers. I do not know how the Lebanese, like after so many years of constant war and everything, you guys are just ready to laugh and party. I am like, this
It's
is the,
coping.
it's coping. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I love the coping
Only only thing we
because,
got.
but it's great because you look at the other Arabs, we're coping with depression. Like it's way better. It's way better to be like, let's just, yalla,
Yalla. Yeah. Tell us about Palestine. Have you ever been there?
Mhm.
Okay, so have you done stand up there? What's
I have not.
like?
I went to Palestine in the 90s.
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
Different time. I went to Palestine shortly after uh, the terror attack in the mosque in Hebron. I don't
Mm.
know if you guys
Okay.
remember.
I
It
don't
was
know
like
that story.
there was a mosque in the Khalil in
Mm-hmm.
Hebron that an Israeli settler went in. He gunned down
Oof.
um, dozens of praying uh,
Mm-hmm.
people, and
Yeah.
we crossed through Jordan. So I've never flown into um, like Tel Aviv or anything like that. We always just crossed the border, and
From
and
Jordan. Mm-hmm.
from Jordan, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the LNB
Hmm.
crossing,
Nice.
and my family lives still to this day in the Dheisheh refugee camp in Bethlehem.
Mm.
And my
Okay.
dad, by the time my dad was born in the 48. It was 1948,
Oof.
and so he between that time and like 67, he was born in like 48. My dad, so he was born during the Nakba,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
they were in the Kalandia refugee camp outside Ramallah,
Mm.
and then they went to Jordan. So when we went to Palestine, my dad wanted us to see his village, which was of course no longer there, but like where it stood,
Mm.
just to drive
Yeah.
through there. And I can imagine that was a very like strange experience for him. And how, because obviously nothing's still there, but he, they didn't want us there. It was clearly not a place where Palestinians lived. And I think we talked to like one person on the road who was from Yemen,
Mm.
a Yemeni Jewish woman, I
Yeah.
believe. And they were, I think, like it was just like a hodgepodge of like kind of like that. And it was it was like thinking back on it, like I couldn't imagine that myself now. You know what I mean? Like just that like they still identify from their village, of course. 48, we still say, we're from this village, 48 Qadar Quds, we still say these things. And like that I think was probably that, and just the basic apartheid, the checkpoints, the whole like
Mm.
just like I
Yeah.
so many stories and experiences that happened that were some were quite terrifying, legitimately, quite frankly, just
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. And also navigating as a woman is a little different because they just they flirt with you.
What?
They're I
Corrupted
don't know.
power.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, maybe you guys haven't noticed this, but in my opinion, they're obsessed with us.
Mm. I never thought about that.
Mm.
Obsessed. I do
What do you mean?
shows. I do
Mm-hmm.
shows, and I wouldn't like I couldn't point out an Israeli like just like I'm not like I don't look oh yeah that I because they look like us mostly,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Like I'm not,
Human beings. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, but like they're
They
when you
might have
travel
bigger
through,
noses though. Just,
maybe
I
I
don't know.
don't like, but when you
Maybe
travel through,
stereotyping, but
you
that's
can
fine.
kind of see how it's like there's similar in some cases like looks and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
um but they'll always come up to me after the show, always, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
fascinated by
Wow.
because I'm just like I wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
So what are they
vice,
asking you like in that
they want to
situation?
talk. They want to have a conversation.
About
They
what?
want to, they want to like, it's like it's the first time they've gotten to talk to a Palestinian
Mm.
and they want to like, some
Oh,
of them want to do projects with me. Some of them want to follow me on some of them will follow me on Instagram. They'll like, it's like, I literally went up there and shit on you guys for like
Yeah.
5 minutes.
They could be spies, for all you
I
know.
mean, like I said, I don't
or they're
like,
masochists. Who knows? I don't
again,
know.
I just think you've got to be obsessed with us. There's really no reason,
Yeah.
nothing forces you to have that interaction. Nothing. I would never pursue that interaction, right? So to
Hmm.
me, that's just like you're obsessed.
And
Like
so, how do you deal with that? I mean, like,
I'm always very I mean, provided they don't like, because most of the time when they talk to me, they would never seek to like offend me. They're very careful. But
mm-hmm.
like sometimes they don't even want, they only want to say they're Israeli like all the way at the end of the conversation. Like I've already
Yeah,
figured it out.
you
Yeah.
Okay.
see, you can see
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
that.
I can
Yeah,
see immediately when they
yeah,
start talking to me and the way they
right.
ask me questions. I'm like, oh, okay, here we
Here we go.
go. Where are you from? And oh, I'm from Jerusalem too. Okay, cool guys. Like it's like they want to find this common ground, but it's like you don't have to. You do realize this is weird, right? Like it's weird that you do this. Okay, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm again, I'm a professional,
Mm-hmm.
and my whole thing is like if you're polite when you speak to me and uh, are not spewing offensive, things to me, like that's fine. But like the moment they start crossing into, I've had conversations with people, not necessarily like audience members, but like
Mm-hmm.
people in the comedy scene that are like, if because I go up and I say openly, like I kind of have a challenge to myself, like
Mm-hmm.
how many times I can say genocide in my bit and get the people to still laugh, like it's like, oh, you because it's not that easy, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that, right? So a lot sometimes guys will try to, so one guy was trying to kind of say to me that it's not a genocide.
Oh.
They love, you know what I
It's
mean,
a
like
pesticide. I don't know what
Yeah.
they're gonna call
I
it.
just
I,
I just you're
I
very
really
good.
hope like you just slap them. Like
No,
open
but that's
hand, just
but here
go.
but this is the thing is like I like first of all, like like I'll be one that time it happened in actually in the club that I performed Habibis in, which is it's a major,
Mm-hmm.
club.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Yeah.
thing is like I'm not gonna blackball or blacklist myself because some dumbass, okay, wanted to like and not only like he really like thought that he was teaching me something, like, I just
Yeah.
want to let you know. So he was coming from a white savior place that was just like I understand you people, but I'm not going to let you like get to me. I'm just going to tell you, get the fuck away from me.
Why
And
do white people have to take that on? Like,
it's a,
what
it's
are they
a,
trying to
it's a
do?
sickness.
Like,
It's a sickness. It's
It's a
a,
disease.
yeah.
it's a disease. It's a huge lack of self-awareness coupled with a high sense of entitlement.
And stupidity.
Mm.
Yeah. Which is what that is. That when you put those two things together, a huge lack of self-awareness and a high sense of entitlement, you're an idiot. Because
It's a
had
dangerous
you had
cocktail, yeah.
had you had any intelligence by now, you would have developed some self-awareness. Like the mind will look at itself sometimes. Okay. Doesn't it? Isn't that
Yeah.
what they tell you? Like meditation, you're watching
Yes,
the
self
mind,
reflection.
introspection, retrospect,
Hmm.
all of that is inspect. Okay. So most of those people are just brainwashed, like just completely
Yeah.
like, I'm like, I can't even, you're not serious people. I can't even I can't even take, like, I'm going to hit a person like that.
Hmm.
It's not even a serious person. Just remove them from my site. Like,
I know,
you
right?
know,
I when I lived in the London, which was very recent, I felt like the work, like especially when I was working, the systems that they implement at work really affects the way you think and your day-to-day life to the
Yes,
degree where you're not actually supposed to think, you know?
of course.
And when I was back in Lebanon, I felt like everything in my day-to-day life involved me actually using my brain. So that means I always was training my brain. I was always actually
But
thinking.
you have to
While in the
admit,
West, I was not using my brain at all,
but you have to
which made
admit
me
though,
become dumber and dumber.
no, but listen, you have to admit that part of that makes us like that in the Lebanon or the Middle East is our, it's surviving.
Hmm.
You have to be like, you have to be
Mm,
on to survive in the Middle East. In America, you can just get in your job and be on autopilot. Some of these people, and they
that's
just,
the problem.
and then they're spoon fed, and then there's no critical thinking skills, and
Hmm.
we're like 34 in
Yes,
education. So this is a cocktail for madness. Okay. It's like, and then you pump in social media, and you pump in like, like just a bunch of people that are giving like opinions on things they don't know or understand. And, you can't
yeah,
differentiate, right? Like, there are people that listen to
100%.
Kim Kardashian for political outlooks. Like, are we serious?
What's even crazier is that if they come to the Middle East looking for jobs as well, they actually get paid more than us.
Sure,
I'm like,
because
so
that's
like,
that's a pro that's
what?
that's our own issue. We have like everything
Yeah,
expat is better. Okay, we are like this. Listen, this is a global problem. Okay, but we're highly intelligent people. When I was coming up in Jordan, we
Hmm.
were a technology center for such a small country. We had such a high percentage of. I mean, now it's different. Computer science, computer, like it
Hmm.
was all of this. I was
yeah,
at one of the first in tech conferences that had, sponsored by the King of Jordan, where they had all of the, these executives from Intel, every single one of these countries come to do business and hire people in our countries. So we are
hmm
not stupid people. We are the most intelligent. Okay. That's why I hate when people like think like, oh, you guys are on your camels. Yeah, fuck you. Okay.
yeah,
Like, yo, like
I don't have any.
our taxis are Mercedes. Okay. First of all, talking about us like we're broke people. We're riding around with a guy who barely makes $100 a month in a Mercedes taxi. Okay, so respect yourself. Okay, and then secondly, like people are highly intelligent there. They're all educated. Education is a huge part of our culture and just Asian culture on the whole. Okay, like
yeah,
like all of us. Okay, you can't look at any of our countries and point to a country where they hate education, except
Hmm.
maybe Afghanistan for women. But like in general, okay, in general, okay, like like asterisk, asterisk, then the Afghans, hey, what about us? No, you're right, okay. They don't want.
let's not adopt Afghanistan into we're
No,
speaking
no,
about
I
the
mean
Arab
like
world, you know.
I
Let's
mean I
let's take
mean like
Arab world.
all of Middle East, Asia, everything, like all of us, all of
Yeah,
Muslims, all of, you know what I mean? Like there's this idea about us. No, we're very, smart, intelligent people where we're very education oriented. Every family member, every mom and dad only cares if you're a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Like you
yeah. If
always
you're not, you're disowned.
if you're
You're
not,
very
what are
easy.
you doing with your life? What do you mean?
Exactly.
Like, so it just like, of course that's an educated culture. Okay. So you come to America and it's like people don't study science, technology, and math. Okay. They don't like being a lawyer is great, but it's just being a paid liar. Okay. And that's a great skill. Okay. You could either be an actor or you could be a lawyer. You can go either way. Okay. But like that, there's other like things that just, they don't, it's like everybody wants to be a social
Hmm.
media influencer now.
Okay. And then get into stand
That's
up.
I guess maybe that's the future. Like
Yeah.
lying on social media.
And do
Instead of
Yeah.
lying in the court and lying on TV, now you're lying
It
on
makes more
Instagram and
money.
TikTok.
It makes more money now if you're just going to find a way to get a following by doing it. You can reach a good audience. And
Yeah,
so like, it's not, if it wasn't profitable, people wouldn't do it.
yeah, totally. And that's why
exactly.
people are doing it. And so, how did you get into stand up then, coming from like a more traditional background? And did you get pushback for trying to do stand up
I
or?
mean, I'm clearly dishonoring my parents, so I don't know if that's the that's the That's the correct. I mean, it's like it's clearly not like a. Again, it's different, for women, even
Yeah,
more.
most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into it. I joke about it, like, I say,
Mhm.
like, people think stand up is like therapy. It's not. I'm just here to dishonor my parents. So, because no matter what I
It's revenge.
do, it might be, like that anyways. So I might as
Hmm.
well live my life. You know, I might
Yeah.
as well be who I am. I'm well into my 40s.
Hmm.
So who am I living for?
Yeah.
Like, so, but, my mom, she's, she doesn't really, I recently I did catch her liking one of my clips, which I was like, oh, that's cute. Surprised by that. It was the one about polygamy. So she's like, relatable, click.
Relatable. Only we have
So,
that in the Middle East. I found out that America, that's not a real thing. Like people don't get married to multiple people.
no,
It's
but
like
they practice
sequentially.
polyamory here.
Mm.
And so my joke was about people that practice polyamory. And I'm like, hey, if you're not going to marry these women, like, give it up. Like, at least we marry them. Like, we're all in. Okay. You guys are just
Right.
dabbling. Okay.
Yeah, I know,
So,
right? It's not a real
so my,
thing.
so I do, and I do joke a lot about, like, a lot of my jokes, do come about like experience I had with my family, with my dad,
Hmm.
with just in general. So, I'm sure they don't appreciate it. I know they don't, but my YouTube sets have been watched far too many times by people in the Middle East. So, so, um, but I really, my goal with it is, again, it's not to dishonor my parents. It's just a joke. It's more, it's to have something and give something. I have nieces,
Yeah.
younger. It's really for the next generation. It's really
Yeah.
for, the people who. It's like we didn't have a blueprint. I did not. And I was different already. Like, no matter how much they tried to make me that way, I was already different. So I wasn't. I had to find a way to live, and now it's more about kind of giving permission to everybody else to also live, you know?
And sharing your unique perspective. How do you think about how the perception of Palestine has changed so much over the past, especially like 2 years and so? I don't know if you saw Bill Burr's new special that just came
I
out.
did.
He
I
does a
just
whole
watched
thing
some
on
of it. I just
Palestine.
watched it last night. Bill
Yeah.
Burr's great.
Yeah,
Bill
totally.
Burr, I love him because he really embodies Gen X rage. Like we are, no, because we were so like, do what you're told this, but we're a rage filled generation. We just like control. He lets it go on stage, and he's not wrong. When I started doing stand up slightly, let's just say like a couple years before, a year or so before October 7th. And when October 7th happened, I was in Europe. I was in Greece.
Uh-huh.
And I was on a Greek island and didn't really have internet like that. So I wasn't, and but I knew by the time I landed, I knew that I would land back in LA and it was going to be different. And it was
Mhm.
immediately. There was a place that I used to do mics at that had reached out to me to tell me that they had ultimately taken down some of my video clips
Oh,
before I
okay.
even landed. Like, I was in the plane, and it was a place I was going to on a very regular basis. And I was. It took me a while. It took me maybe a week actually after the conversation to process what the conversation meant and was. And eventually I
Yeah.
understood. I'm like, oh, they had in haste taken down a video of mine that had nothing to do with Palestine and said nothing about Palestine, but just because my bio says I am Palestinian, they had in haste taken down the videos of me, and then they had reached out to request because they had to re-upload them, so they wanted to put them back up, and they thought that I would find out that way. I didn't even realize they took them down. That's how little I cared about them. But it was just the when it finally registered that I was like, oh, like they were afraid that people would, I don't, harboring a Palestinian. I do not know. Okay. And, and it was very difficult in the first. like I did not actually go out to perform for maybe 6 months.
Mm.
There were other people, comedians that I knew that would go out and they would tell me it's really bad out here. It's really rough out here. Not even, I mean, we're talking about non-Arab comedians. They were um, openly hating Palestinians, slurs, everything. It was like comedians would go up on stage and just do 5 minutes of like hate material against Palestinians. And, um, and then, of course, the protests were going on, and the UCLA protest was a big flashpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I went to
Mm.
UCLA during that time to see, everything. I was at UCLA the day before they went in to beat them, and the cops went in.
Mm.
And
Oh wow.
and I've lived in LA since 2006. This is what I prefaced it with that, meaning I already knew what. That's why I knew when I landed what something was going to be up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
just hard to really quantify it until you're in action, right? And so once I finally started to go back out on stage, um, I definitely like was in spaces where I felt like people were not happy to see me. Just like not like as soon as I said, I'm Palestinian, or I wanted to talk about that, it was just
Right.
not even a sympathy laugh, which again, I'm not there for sympathy laughs, but not even a sorry, not sympathy, not even a polite laugh. And to,
Yeah.
and it felt really racist.
Yep.
So some places I stopped going to because I was just like, I don't want to be here. This don't feel like, and plus when you're in a space like that, they're not going to platform you unless you're like already way more famous than them. Like I know how the system works here. So what's the
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So that's kind of why I'm not very I knew what it was like before I got into comedy, and I knew it would be different after, when everything started to happen and pop off. And so I was sort of prepared, which is why I didn't do comedy for months, and honestly didn't even leave my house for a while. Like I was not like it was not feeling good out here.
Mm.
Okay.
I'm
And
sorry.
again, it's not like I'm visibly like walking around, like, oh, it was just the way that people were communicating the vibes to me. I was like, wow, like that's intense
Mm.
hate, And then, of course, the way they went in and beat those kids in UCLA, and they let them beat them, and nobody really got charged for anything. So it's a message, right? It's a sign, from them
Yeah.
to like, you know what I mean? So that's that. And it like, yeah, hey, listen, I'm out here to speak my mind and do everything, but I'm not going to get mobbed. I'm not. And ultimately I had family and friends and people that were very afraid for my safety. Like my boyfriend thought I might get shot on stage at one point. Like I never even like honestly, like why? I'm just like, but yeah, people were like, because he would hear people, his clients, saying things that were crazy hate against Palestinians. And he would say, like, what about the children? And they're like, they all need to die. And he's just like, maybe you
What
should
the
stay
heck?
home. Like, and he's not from there, you know what I mean? He's European. So he was like, what's this?
That fits
Right.
though.
So it has changed. And then after maybe like the year, I felt like after like about 12 months of people being bombarded with these images and everybody really putting the pressure on, I think the sentiment has shifted
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of spaces, maybe not all the spaces, but the sentiment has shifted.
Mm.
And always, there's spaces where people are like, it's like you're their heroes. So that's what, it's shifting. And I think, even with Mahmoud Khalil, like, here's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. They hate us so much, but they keep putting us up on a pedestal.
I know.
Okay.
Yes.
You keep highlighting for everybody what badass people we are.
I know, right? Ah,
and and for doing nothing, like, not, I mean, you know what I mean, like ultimately just with our words.
the backlash of No Other Land, they were trying to suppress that film so much
Yeah.
it only made
You
it
know
more
that they pulled the
infamous.
lease in Miami. The mayor of Miami pulled the lease on a theater for
Mm.
showing the film. They revoked their lease. They have to
Really?
close. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
It's an
What?
Oscar-winning film.
Yeah. I went and saw it. I saw it. I'm not going to lie. I cried extremely hard through a lot of it. It was a very difficult watch for me. Um,
Yeah.
the end of it was silence. People were all seated,
Hmm.
sitting through the credits, and you could hear a pin drop. I've never been in a movie experience like that. Everybody was just like,
Hmm.
and then people just got up and left in silence. And it was, yeah, I know they don't want to show it. Of course, they don't want people to see it, but it opened, there's controversy around it having to be co-produced with an Israeli. But, we all know that's the only way, these things like are going to get out there and get exposure. Like it has to be
Yeah.
co-signed. Are we happy with that? No. Is that another indication of our oppression? Of course. Right? And then you have now, Mo is like the
Hmm.
same year we get Mo season 2 and we get No Other Land. They're big mad. How did these ones slip through the cracks? And No Other Land doesn't have distribution still in the US. So
Hmm.
it's not like it's on Netflix yet, like Mo.
Hmm.
But people saw
Yeah.
Mo and they've never seen us be humanized like that.
Hmm.
This is the first year of
True. Yeah.
Palestinians being like, we've been dehumanized completely, but also we're so humanized because of that to people that see us. Because it's like, wow, you guys are just like living life. Like, you guys are great. You guys are not, you appreciate, you enjoy, you love each other. Like, yeah.
It must feel so good.
Oh my God, Mo. Like, I cried through Mo. I cried through No Other Land. And it's not like you go, it's comedy. It's just the recognition of
Mm.
the generational suffering that our people had to go through to now be like, oh, there's a TV show humanizing us. How many Palestinians had to die for a comedy show to be greenlit that humanizes Palestinians and talks about the conflict from the Palestinian perspective? And it's like everybody loves it. So it's a two-edged sword. Like it's both sides of it. So it's like it's that recognition that we've been fighting for almost 80 years. And these are these little wins that we get, and we're like so excited, as we should be. Like we will support each other. It's like Habibis, hilarious Habibis. They're out there doing that. They put everybody. They're making that space
Hmm.
for Middle Eastern comics. They're going to take it on the road. Gina
Hmm.
and Lynn are doing that. Other
Yeah,
comics.
fantastic. Hmm.
So we as
Yeah.
artists and creatives, that's why when you asked in the beginning, like, what is this for? Well, because people have to see us,
Yeah, that's
and
our work.
we have to get
Hmm.
reach.
Yep.
So if we can't get reach, that's it.
It's funny that when we were kids, at least from my experience, we were told like, "Oh, getting into film or comedy, it's you're not gonna make money. You're not gonna be able to do anything. It's just
Who said we
a
make
waste
money?
of time." Mo's super
Listen,
successful, and No Other Land they're super
Hollywood is
successful.
like a
So
pyramid scheme. The top people make, like, I'm just being honest with you, okay? Like, there's no, it's not like it's spread the love. So don't spread propaganda, okay? It's not everybody that gets up there. It's hard. We're not making money. I got handed $10 last night for a show, okay? And the guy took the $10 bill and he goes, before he handed it to me, I'm like, oh,
it's real.
I can't even get McDonald's with this, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, fuck McDonald's. But
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that mentality of like, but that's what I mean. Like, you have to love it. You have to want to do it. Mo put years in to be now having a show and
Yeah,
getting that
totally.
success. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. So when you went to say that your unique perspective is why you went into it, what is your perspective? What's the message you're trying to push with your stand up?
I mean, again, I just think like, first of all, I was born in America and then I went to live
Hmm.
in the Middle East. Um, so I have a multicultural perspective.
Hmm.
And I have a different understanding of a lot of these issues and a lot of people who are just, in America propagandized and watching whatever, right? And also the perspective of, like I said, I have an engineering background, so I just look at things very logically and methodically. And
Mhm.
it's comedy, but it's also presenting, I'm not going to say an argument, but it's like you're going to take people on this thought journey.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these thought journeys, people are like, if you started at the end, they're not going to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start at the beginning and you take them there, by the end, they're like, fuck, I didn't think I would agree with this. Okay. That's what people like Bill Hicks and George Carlin and people like that did, where you're changing minds, right? You're offering,
Mhm.
you're trying to take these concepts and take them down to pieces and take people on this journey. So by the end, they're like, she's kind of right. Because
Yeah.
because people don't we're truth tellers. Not all of
Mm-hmm.
it, but we're supposed to be truth tellers. And one thing that we know from watching Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. People can't handle the truth. They need it to be digestible. They would
Mm-hmm.
prefer a comfortable lie to an uncomfortable truth. So that's kind of the perspective that it's like I look at comedy like that. Like, how do I take these difficult topics, complicated things? There he goes.
Yeah, we lost him.
uh, how do I take these complicated things and make them funny, but also maybe change people's minds, maybe give people an opportunity to learn something. So that, and just again, being a woman, Arab, Muslim, Palestinian,
Mm-hmm.
woman in this world, as a 40-something-year-old woman, life lessons, wisdom, things like that, that I would like to also, make it funny, but pass it on to other women. Yeah, that's, I mean, really, like, and of course to talk about Palestine, really,
Yeah,
that's a
totally.
big motivating factor.
Well, thanks, Lana, so much for coming on the pod today. We
Thank
lost
you.
Saeed, but it's okay. We have to lose him along the way. And so, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And until next time, um, where can people find out more about your stand up and such?
So I have my website, which is lanasalah.com,
Mm-hmm.
LANASALAH.com. My Instagram, all my socials are on there. My Instagram, follow me on Instagram, which is the Lana Salah. And yeah, I'm putting together a show. We're producing a show last Sundays of every month in Culver City at a place
Okay,
called
cool.
Bigfoot Lodge West.
Nice.
And we're also having some Arab comics there. That's the goal. So we're
Awesome.
definitely hoping to, and it's a free show. So
Okay,
anybody in
cool.
LA or watching, come and visit.
Okay, cool. I'd love to check it out. Thanks, Lana.
Thank you.
Yes, so until next time, thanks so much for the beautiful episode. Okay, bye guys. See ya.
Bye.